How's it going, gaming fans? So, in my previous video, well, my first video on the channel actually, I talked about my kind of history with card games and you know, the first game that I got into, and that was Magic the Gathering, and how I like to create crazy combos and play weird decks. I never played really the mainstream decks, and so I thought it would be fitting to do a video on one of the decks that I like to play. You know, I know ever since I built it, I kind of kept it the same. I mean, I might have swapped out a card here and there, but I've held on to this deck for quite a while, and that is Relentless Rats. The thing that's cool about this card is that it breaks the rules of Magic, and that's what I've always liked. I've always liked cards that would, you know, break the rules in a sense. And if you've played any card games, or if you're familiar with card games, you'll always know that there's a rule book, there's a set of rules, and typically within those rules, there is a line that says any card has the ability to change these rules. And that's what this card does. So if you play Magic, or if you understand Magic, you know Magic, you'll know that to build a deck, you typically build a deck with up to 4 of the same card. So you could have, and that's not including your land cards, which are these, which generate your mana to pay for stuff. But typically, if you're going to play a character card or a creature card, you can only play 4 of the same guy, and then, you know, depending on if it's on a banned or restricted list and all the other stuff, then you might only be able to play 1 or something like that. But in this case, the Relentless Rat, I don't know if you could read that, my lighting's still off. It basically says a deck can have any number of cards named Relentless Rats. So you're breaking the rules right there. You're now allowed to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, as many as you want. And, you know, deck sizes, like 60 is the minimum. I believe there's a maximum. I haven't been keeping up with the current rules of Magic. But, you know, if you wanted to build a really big deck, there was nothing really stopping you. But why would you? But anyways, yeah, and the other thing that's cool about these guys is they get +1/+1 for each other creature named Relentless Rats. And that's a keyword there, other. So it doesn't boost himself, but he's a good 2/2 for 3 mana. I mean, 3 mana, you're a 2/2 is not the best, but with an ability like this, it's pretty cool. So the object of this guy is to obviously get as many of these guys onto the field as possible. And also to have a ton of them in your deck. And that's what I did. I don't know, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I got a total of 22 rats, Relentless Rats in this deck. So as you can imagine, if you were able to possibly get every single rat out onto the field, you would have a 24 attacking creature. Your life total in Magic is 20. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not an easy thing to do, okay? Your opponent's going to be stopping you in every, you know, step of the way. Also, because Magic is not, you know, you're refined to your resources. Like I said, your mana. So you can't just drop them all down on the field. It's not like games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where there's no cost to play creatures half the time. You just throw it down there. So you gotta find ways around it. And so I found, you know, I'm sure this deck has been profiled before. This is not a unique deck by any stretch of the imagination. But it is a cool deck, and so I use a card called Allure. You know, I think I have 4 of these, but going through my deck, I don't know. I might have pulled one out because of redundancy, but I can't see myself doing that. But anyways, yeah, I'll have to look through my stack again. But this card is pretty cool. This is a green card, so the Relentless Rats are black. This is a green card, so you got to have green in your mana pool. And it's 4 mana, so costs 4 to put it out on the table. But what it says is that any player may play a creature card with a total casting cost of 3 or less whenever he could play an instant, meaning at instant speed, without paying its mana cost. So, for 4 mana, I drop one of these guys down. Then I can drop as many of these rats in my hand as possible. So if I had a whole hand of rats, I could drop them all down on the table. And it says at instant speed, meaning I could do it on my opponent's turn. So typically in Magic, these creatures, when you cast them, they can't attack that turn you play them. So you gotta wait. All of a sudden now you got all these big, beefy rats that are going to come after you. So the other problem is the draw power. Now with Magic you draw 1 card per turn. Black and green doesn't really have a whole lot of options when it comes to drawing cards. That's really a blue effect. So I use this other card from another set, but this one's called Desperate Research. Now this one says to name a card other than a basic land, of course. Reveal the top 7 cards of your library, which is your deck. Put all of them into your hand that have that name. Remove the rest from the game. So obviously I'm going to pick Relentless Rats. And with hope, I will draw at least 4, if I was lucky, 7 rats that I can drop onto the field. So obviously the plan is to get the Allurin out, which is why I think I have 4 copies, but I don't know where the other one is. But I would drop that down first. This would be my primary goal. Then I would play the Desperate Research card just to dig through the top 7 cards of my deck. Hope they're all Relentless Rats, which when you have 22 of them in your deck, that's a pretty good chance you're going to hit a couple anyways. Plus the ones that are already in your hand when you started the game. And then you drop them down. So I also included a couple of other cards like Necropotence, which is it's a black spell as well. You skip your draw phase, but you could pay 1 life to pretty much draw cards. It's the way it works. And if you're going to be dropping these mammoth rats onto the field, who cares if you drop yourself down to like 1 life point? Unless your opponent's playing a deck that can like burn you with a spell, throw damage at you through a card, or they can attack you directly, because they're not going to get through these rats. I'm telling you that much. Of course, there is effects like flying and stuff. You know, you have to be careful. And of course I threw in a tutor card, which in Magic terms is a card that lets you search your deck for any card and put it into your hand. So in this case it would be either my Allurin if I didn't draw it, it'd be my Desperate Research if I needed more rats, anything that I possibly need. This is a black card, so possibly pulling out the proper land color. So we have a forest, we have a swamp. This one's actually like a Spanish swamp or something. And that's, you know, the way I would play this deck. Of course, I did throw in a few of these other, you know, creatures. These guys. These are guys like act like lands. The lands that generate the mana. And what's important is that this guy can either give me green or black. Problem is I have to have at least green to put him onto the field in the first place. So I threw those in there. And a few other oddball cards, like, I don't know, I threw this in. This is called Fog. This is basically, you play this on your opponent's turn and none of their creatures will hurt you. Just in case your opponent builds a big field of nasties, you could play this, live for 1 turn, next turn, throw all your rats down, and go for game. And I threw in a card called Naturalize, which is essentially something that just destroys certain cards on the field. Now these are obviously just filler choices. I could have chosen a lot better cards. But this is, you know, the main focus of the deck is the rats, the Allurin, and the Desperate Research. I did also have these Bloodstained Mires in here. And these are what they called fetch lands. You pay a life, you sacrifice it, and then you search for a land of your choice, what's written in here. So it tells you either pull a red card or a mountain or a swamp, which is, you know, in this case I would pull a swamp, but there's a reason why I was running that card, and I have 3 empty sleeves. And the reason why I have 3 empty sleeves is I used to have a dual land called Bayou, or Bayou. I think it was Bayou. I think it's Bayou. And that one is a land that counted both as a black land and a green land, a swamp and a forest, and it would generate one or the other. But they're pretty expensive cards, and they were some of the cards that I ended up getting rid of when I sold off some of my rare expensive cards. Now there are other lands that have come out since then that are cheaper and affordable that kind of do the same thing, but yeah, I had to take them out just to get rid of them, just to sell them off, because they're pretty expensive cards. But yeah, this was it was fun revisiting this deck. You know, it's something that whenever I play casual, this is not a tournament deck. I would never enter a tournament with this deck because it's vulnerable to a lot of other decks. It's vulnerable to a side deck, and that's, you know, if you're not familiar with card games, after you play your first game with your opponent, you can take from your 15 card side deck, put it into your deck, any cards you need, take some out, and essentially they go against certain types of decks. And this deck would be pretty vulnerable to a lot of different things. So, you know, this is really a casual deck, but it's a fun deck. It's a combo deck. I always loved the combo decks. This is what I used to think about all the time. I'd think about combos and different kinds of combos. This one's kind of a simple one, and you know, a lot of people have already used these cards in combination. Nothing unique, but fun nonetheless. And these are the type of things that I like to play when I played Magic. Anyways, let me know what you think. Have you ever played this deck? Throw some comments down below. It's a fun one. You know, there's a lot of newer cards that have come out that'll probably like greatly improve this deck, but I just haven't been buying Magic cards in a long time, so I'm not on the ball. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Hope you like and subscribe. See you guys later.